How are you, BookTube? My name's Maria and welcome to my channel MH Books, and this is the last of me reading the long list of the Dublin Literary Awards. Plans were to read three, talk about them in reading order, and then just pick the one that I like the most from the three. I actually have five at the moment because I DNF'd two. The literary awards will be announced tomorrow when this video goes up, assuming it goes up as planned at the correct time. And I will try to read the short list. Didn't get through a hell of a lot on the long list, to be honest, but we try. I am reading other books obviously at the same time, but I really did enjoy it. Just the opportunity to look at books that would have been published between the summer of 2020 and the summer of 2021, which may no longer be pressurized to read if I had read the women's long list at the moment in the short lists, which would be current books. So it's like a second opportunity for books. So I always appreciate this award for this, as well as the fact that this award is nominated by libraries. So without any more ado, I will go through the five books. The thumbnail will have four because I've given the first one back to the library because I only had one copy at the time when I borrowed it. And that is The Girl with the Braided Hair, a novel, which is by Rasha Adly, and it was translated by Sarah Inani. The picture of the book is up because future Marie will edit this to show the picture of the book. As always, who nominated this? So this was nominated by the Bibliotheca Alexandrina in Egypt. It's a book set in Egypt, so they are giving us the opportunity to read one of theirs. So east is east and west is west. As a poet wrote once, yet the twain are mesmerizingly met in Rasha Adly's The Girl with the Braided Hair. A phantasmagoria of history and fiction that takes place in Egypt, the melting pot of eclectic cultures. Adly's novel depicts a dichotomy between two cultures that stand wide apart: the French campaign in Egypt and Syria, and that is the wane, and an Egyptian society that had been cynical for so long, but the culture of enlightenment. Adly portrays a mesmerizing narrative that works as a harmonious hodgepodge of art, fiction, politics, modern and old social lives, incarnated in the two major protagonists, the painted one with the braided hair and the modern one who tries to unearth the mystery of the former. The Napoleonic campaign in Egypt stands as a watershed in the relationship between East and West, and Adly's novel represents this. Okay, so this is actually the first book that I DNF'd. So if somebody has completed this, I would be interested in what they said. I read as far as page 85. It is, as the description says, it's at two timelines. There's a modern art historian in Cairo, and she's restoring a painting, which seems to have human hair actually in it, of an 18th century Egyptian woman who is wearing a mixture of Western and Egyptian clothing, and they shouldn't be at the time. And it flashes back in time to the two women, and the late 18th century Egyptian woman is mixed up in the Napoleonic campaign at the time, and seemingly there's a love story that arises. Unfortunately, I found the writing quite mediocre and the story dry, and too dry to push past page 85 when there were so many other novels that I could be reading on this long list. So maybe I did not give this a good enough shot. I'm sure it includes everything that the library said, and that I was terribly harsh. I know that very few people have actually read this, and those that do seem to be indicating that it's okay that it's a little bit dry and drawn out because it's translated. I don't think so. Yeah, there was just absolutely nothing at all about the writing that gripped me. So that's all I'm going to say on it, because I don't think I'm qualified to talk on this at only 85 pages. The other one I've DNF'd, I will talk a little bit more about, I think. But I'm a bit concerned, I'm a little bit harsh in this, that I was just decided that I wanted to read something that gripped me better within the first 85. I usually think you should be able to judge reasonably well between the first 50 and 60. I probably should have done a page 112 on it or something, but I think, so I decided to let it go and to send it back to the library. So because there was only one copy at the time, and it was on the long list, and I knew that other people were in the waiting list for it. So that's that one. And so the next one, Catch the Rabbit by Lana Bastašić, which was nominated by the University Library of Bern in Switzerland. And it's a multi-layered road trip of two unequal friends from Mostar to Vienna. Mostar is in Bosnia and Vienna, obviously in Austria. This moving and dark page turner is often compared to the Neapolitan novels by Elena Ferrante, not only because of the topic of deep friendship between the two women, but also because of the novel's quality. So that's University of Library of Bern, Switzerland. So do I agree? Yes. The quality of the novel, yes. They're comparing it to the Neapolitan novels, or they say it's compared to the Neapolitan novels by Elena Ferrante. I have not read them because most of my friends who read don't like them, tried them and didn't like them. So, and I trusted their opinion. But then a lot of people I know have read this and not like this, and I do like it. So maybe I should be trying out the Neapolitan novels after all, because tastes differ, even though they're similar in other ways. It's hard to know. This story is fundamentally about a road trip and friendship. A woman is phoned up by somebody, a friend that she has, is actually her frenemy. She describes it very well. Frenemy is a great term for it. Who she hasn't spoken to, someone she's fallen out with for over 12 years, and disrupts her from her life in Dublin, where she's living with an IT guy and he's raising an avocado plant from an avocado pit that she thinks, and calls her to go back to Bosnia and drive to Vienna, because the other protagonist, whose name is Layla's brother, has suddenly reappeared back on the scene. And both friends were the only people in the world who had thought he was still alive even. So the two, without, you know, this is somebody she's fallen out with and she doesn't want to get back to, yet she still drops everything and goes to Bosnia to drive this old friend of hers back to seek and they find her brother. So it's about the road trip on one hand, and then every second chapter is a reflection of their friendship as children and about their friendship. The book is fundamentally, though, about this friendship, and it's about memories of being a child. And it is about the unreliableness of memory and of our narrator, which a lot of people don't seem to be picking up on. Our narrator, it was very unreliable in this. And whether Layla and what's the other, Sarah is the main protagonist. So it's from her perspective and her memories, but you get glimpses of Layla all the way through. And Layla at first sounds like a terrible person, but also a little bit of a force of nature. She throws used tampons out of the window, and she just calls it for somebody she hasn't talked to in 12 years, and they drive her across Europe. So a bit of a force of nature. And as you go through, you kind of realize that Sarah's memories and Layla's memories, what you see of Layla don't gel. And for me, it became a compulsion. Who was real? What was real? What had really happened in the past? And was Sarah or Layla right, or was it somewhere in between? And then we have the ending. It has quite an ending. So it is very much the dynamics of the one friendship and of a past friendship, and an exploration of the memory of childhood and the lies that occur. So, and the ending's brilliant. Even people who don't like it love the ending. So I had no problem zipping through this book, and personally I recommend it, even though I know a lot of people absolutely thought it was mediocre at best. There are a few like me too who loved it as well. It's obviously nominated by the library, but there you go. There's one, you know, it's a good one to have after the other book that I DNF'd, showing that, you know, opinions are going to be different on different books, but the books are nominated by readers in libraries, are read and loved by somebody. So even if I'm going to DNF a book soon in this one, it's, you know, always a matter of opinion. Okay, next book. So, talking about books I DNF'd. The next one that's nominated is Charlie Kaufman's Antkind, originally published in English. It's been nominated by the Bibliotheken der Landeshauptstadt in Mainz, Germany. I just split a word, one word into three. German words are always still too long for me. And their comment is, it's a novel extraordinarily and unusually written. That is correct. It is extraordinarily and unusually written. Okay, I have stopped reading this one about here. It's my copy. I bought it on the 26th of October 2020. It was during lockdown in Ireland again. And but click and collect was allowed. Everything was defined for the last 2 years whether something was allowed. So I did get this one in the Gutter bookshop. And that's why they have a note in it for thank you for supporting independent bookshops during the crisis. It's just particularly important that I got this one too, because you're going through, so it's October 2020, we're still locked down in Ireland. We went all the way through to halfway through 2021. But I was going through the independent bookshops, and rather than look closely at novels, I was going through their staff recommends sections. So this is from a staff recommends section in the Gutter bookshop. And so people do like this. I absolutely hate it. I really hate a book. I have gotten, it's a long enough one, so 150 pages in, I'd say, because I went a bit further than that actually. And I wasn't reading. I realised I wasn't reading. It's a satire about a filmmaker and filmmaking, and it's, yeah, and it's satire. So I think satire is a comedy, type of comedy that I don't particularly like. And yeah, he's so politically correct. He's politically incorrect, and he's going on how everybody thinks he's Jewish, but he's not Jewish, again and again and again and again. And then a scene happens around about where I've marked it with his pet dog, which was, yeah, I just kind of went, look, I'm not enjoying this book and this scene. It's horrendous. I've actually read, these are horror shows. I read a lot of horror. Hell but nicer. than the stuff that happened in there, and I didn't see the point of it. I have actually spoken to authors before, and they said, like, why did you include this? And they justified why they included some horrendous scenes that involved animals. Usually it's the dogs. For some reason, dogs upset me. Yeah. For some reason that does. So, like, why did you do that? And they used to have justification. I don't know that there's a justification in this. There probably is. It's probably that it's satire, and the satire is above me. It is incredibly boring. If you want to read something that's more interesting, that's weird, and about characters who taking their art too seriously, because he's taking filmmaking far too seriously in this. There's a film in this that takes 3 months to watch. And he's taking it far too seriously in this. But you want to read a book that is a little bit weird and quirky, and it is from the horror genre, but it does it in a far more entertaining manner. I would recommend Bunny by Mona. It's a Mona Ali. I'll have to put her name up. Or if, again, because you're constantly in his head and his thought process. If you want to read a long book about somebody, you know, thinking off the top of their head, maybe Duck's Snoopy Report. Okay, at least that is well written, and it has an underlying nicety to the story. I absolutely hate this. I'm trashing it badly, but it actually really annoys me. But again, other people do like this book. It does divide opinions, so obviously judge for yourself. I would hate to put somebody off a book which they could actually really have loved. So worst review in history. What can I say? Okay, so the second one I actually finished, the fourth one in this video, is The Last Migration by Charlotte McConaghy, actually called Migrations, and I think Migrations is the more current titles, or maybe it's the usual thing. It's published in the US as Migrations, and the UK and Australia, because I know the Australian version originally had The Last Migration too. I don't know. If somebody knows, they can comment. By Charlotte McConaghy, written while she was traveling around the west coast of Ireland, which I thought was interesting. So actually the 2 books I finished are about people living in Ireland who are not, well, the character in this one is half Irish, who are not Irish, which was interesting. Again, dividing lots of people, this one again. But let's start off with what we said we would, the library who nominated. So it is the Municipal Library of Prague in the Czech Republic, and they state it is an atmospheric contemplative novel with environmental and soul-shaking overlap. Very good description. That's what it is. It's an atmospheric contemplative novel with environmental and soul-shaking overlap, with a little few weaknesses in its actual narrative structure. But if you don't poke too deeply, that's a great description. The Last Migration is a story about a woman who has a compulsion to travel. Even in her sleep, she sleepwalks a lot, which is fundamental and part of the story. And about her relationship with the sea. She's a swimmer, an avid swimmer, and her love of the nature around it. One of her early stories is she used to feed crows and the crows followed her. But as we begin this novel, she is talked her way, or is about to talk her way onto a sea vessel in the Arctic, and going to ask them to follow the terns. It's the terns, isn't it? Is the name of the birds from the Arctic, as our migration goes from the Arctic to the Antarctic. And it turns out this is probably going to be the last migration of these birds, because the majority of wildlife on the planet is now extinct. I think we have 90% extinction at the time of the of the book. So possibly not too far into the future, basically. So as the story progresses and she's on the boat with these fishermen and fisherwomen, we flash back to her relationship with her husband, who she met in NUI in Galway, so it's National University of Ireland, Galway. And he's an ornithologist, and obviously he's the reason why she's chasing these seabirds across the globe and tracking their last migrations. And we hear the story, and she's writing letters to her husband. So we hear the story of their relationship and their love, but also flashbacks to her childhood and the reasons that she had felt this compulsion to travel. So the compulsion to travel and the traveling of the birds, even though they're doomed if they do, is just a theme that goes on throughout the story. And yes, it's environmental and soul shaking. It's in places a sad novel, and I actually rather enjoyed Charlotte McConaghy's writing. I did get another one of her books as a result. I ordered, so this one's from the library. I actually ordered another copy of one of her books to try out her writing again. People's criticisms of this has included, you cannot poke this narrative too closely. We're all full, it's full of the feel, so anybody who likes a book full of the feels are going to love it. But if you poke into and examine the story too much, I mean, it's never explained what's the impact of, like 90% of the animal population has now died. What's the impact on people, on the planet? What's happened to global warming? How bad has it come? You know, I mean, why are crops surviving if it's not a worldwide shortage of food, if pollinators are dead? 90% of the animals are dead. That includes pollinators. There's, you know, you could poke it into, like, why is that not explained? She's concentrating very much only on this woman's emotive experience, her love of the sea, her love of the animals, her relationship with people, her need to travel, and the two things coincide in her following a lost migration and all the rest of it, and of the seabirds at the same time, as she has an undeniable need to move herself. And yes, a couple of bits that are said in Ireland, quite a bit of their flashback is said in Ireland, was factually incorrect about how the university system works, and it's involved her husband is an ornithologist, so he is, you know, and he's in academia. I know that's not quite how the university system works in Ireland, but okay. It's fiction, it's story, don't poke at the story, and you're fine in this one, I think. And it did, yeah, it did. It was a couple of weepy moments in it, which you're meant to have. So I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be honest. So next book. And last but not least, the dictionary, I don't know which one to hold up. The Dictionary of Lost Words by Tiff Williams, which I'm also reading for a real life book club. That's why it was left too last to read, so it won't be too far away from the book club meeting. And it is a book that's been on my radar for a long time. Lots of people have read it, loads of people love it. It is, I think it first came to my attention when people were guessing it might be they're on their guessing long lists for the Women's Prize last year, I think. So the library who voted for this one was Katona József Library of Bács-Kiskun County, which I'll probably mispronounce, but their name is in the show notes, in Hungary. So words make up books and books make up libraries. Appreciating words is important to all readers, even if it's not done consciously. This book is a good time to think about this. Exactly. It really does make you think about words and the importance of words. Most people know what this is already. Most people have already read it, but in case you don't, the Dictionary of Lost Words is set at a time. It's a fictionalized story of a fictionalized character set at the time that the Oxford Dictionary is being written. All the male characters in this book are real historic characters. Because of the lack of information of female characters, they've been fictionalized mostly. So that's what Pip Williams says at the end of the book. So mostly they've been fictionalized, including her main heroine, who is completely fictional. And gone and blanked on the head and says Esme is our main heroine. So she's a fictional character that may have existed while the Oxford Dictionary was being written. So she's brought up, it's her whole life story set around the writing, because the Oxford Dictionary took so long to write, printed volume by volume, set from the time when she was a small child underneath table, looking at all these men writing this dictionary, all the way through to her death. And so it explores her love of the words and her eventually working on the dictionary as well as an adult and making that choice as a woman. So that's in the 1920s, if I remember correctly. And her discovering that there are words being left out of the dictionary, which is the Dictionary of Lost Words. So these would be words that people use in their vernacular. This kind of words would now be included in most dictionaries, but weren't at the time. And about how genderist, how male the dictionary was, because a word had to be written down and published. And then, yes, there were some female authors, but mostly there were male authors. And words were used from the Times, but not from other newspapers. And words that are used in the vernacular were not put into the dictionary. So she goes around and collects these words, and eventually gets a small issue of her dictionary. The Dictionary of Lost Words does get published in the book. I hope that's not too much of a spoiler for anybody. It does get published in the book. But it's about the ins and outs of her life and her love of words. It goes all the way through, through the First World War, where she's working with men who have shell shock and have lost language, and she's teaching them Esperanto, and it's an unusual story. Her life is an unusual life. Pip Williams has given her heroine a very unusual life, with some she's brought to life some of these real life historical characters in a very amusing manner, and given the women in particular who had very little written about them a big depth and breadth. And so almost certainly not their true characters, because there's not enough written about them to know, but some of the real women who worked on this dictionary have been given some fabulous over-the-top real-life characters by Pip Williams. It's an incredibly entertaining and well-woven story, combining historical fact with outright fiction, which is, but keeping the timeline of the Oxford Dictionary right. So if you look it up, you're going to know of the male character who dies and things during the writing of the dictionary, and what happens during the First World War, if you look it up on Wikipedia or anywhere properly, because Wikipedia is not proper, seemingly. So yes, absolutely fabulous story, a fabulous historical fiction, which I thoroughly recommend. And if you don't like it, you've no heart. That's mean. I don't mean that. So that's the end of my reading for this. So which ones did I choose as my favourite? Yes. Sunshine House disagrees completely. He would have chosen Antkind, but obviously that's just been dismissed without offhand. Last Migration is a heart-wrenching story. Has a few narrative flaws though. So that leaves me the choice between these two. Both got 5 stars for me, but I'm choosing Catch the Rabbit, most controversially, because of that ending and because I could not, and I've spent 2 weeks trying to work out Layla, what was true about her and what wasn't true. And yeah, I cannot get over the speculation of that. I need to reread this and decide which is true, which is not true about her, and what about her character, and what really happened, and what we were never told. And the ending is fabulous in this. So it was very close though, and I think more people obviously enjoy this one. And I'm looking forward to discussing it in the book group when it comes up. So that's it before, and I'm just scooshing over on my chair. I still have other books that I haven't read, but the long list is out tomorrow when this comes up. So I have to read still Hodo Baccarat, Voices of the Lost, but this is a library book, so I will return it unless someone tells me to read it, because somehow I just don't expect it to make the shortlist. The Employees, a Workplace Novel, the 22nd Century by Olga Ravin. Miss Iceland by, I'm not going to try to pronounce her last name, but it's a she because of the last bit of her last name. Book I haven't read yet, but I expect to make the shortlist. Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ichiguro. Another book I expect to make the shortlist is Susanna Clarke's Perenzi. So I've just kind of kept them aside, expecting them to make the shortlist, but I own those books, so I will read them anyway, even if they don't. The other one is Transcendental Kingdom as well. I expect to make the shortlist. So if there's any of these three though, the 3 library books that you think I should definitely read, just comment down below, I suppose. And until next time, I hope whatever you're reading that you're enjoying it, and have fun.